Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline. I swear I've done this video twice. It's driving me nuts. I know that happens to a lot of people who make videos. Anyway, I forgot to add something in my last one, so I was like, I might as well add it into this one, make a whole new one. Okay, so I'm going to discuss a topic that is quite a serious topic. It's going to be traumatizing to some trans women, and it's going to maybe trigger some not so good times. So, the subject today is going to be some of the worst shit men have ever done to me, particularly because I'm trans. Which is awful. So there's three. There's three instances and three of the worst. There's other things where, guys just stop talking to you because you're trans or, stuff like that. Those are, bare minimal. They hurt because, like, if you like someone, but they're not, like, traumatizing. So I'm going to talk about, like, the three most traumatizing things men have ever done to me. My ex-girlfriend broke my heart, so I can't really put her in this category, but she was never vindictively mean about my transition. So she broke my heart because I was ridiculously passionately mad about her, which makes no damn sense. But anyway, so as far as like traumatizing has gone, deliberate traumatizing. So when I lived in Los Angeles, and this is when I first transitioned, around about the first time I started making videos, there was this guy that came along, and it was really just for fun, and he was pretty hot, and it was a very good time, we'll say. So we continued to talk, but it was never like going out to dinners or restaurants or anything like that. It was strictly like him coming over, watching movies, and enjoying ourselves, and smoking pot. And so he told me the story that his sister was trans, and she left and then came back as a woman, and he was just blown away by it, and he was freaked out because he ended up going on porn, of course, where most men go when they think of trans women. And so he went into porn and started getting into trans women. He's like, oh my god, this is a thing. But he didn't want his family to know. But this was his excuse. He didn't want his family to know because he was like, I just don't want my sister to be trans, and then them knowing I'm dating trans women. And I was like, oh, for God's sake, grow some balls. Anyway, so he after about 6 months of him coming over every night, and this is during the economy crash, so things were really bad. I also lost a job at a barbershop at that time because there's two people I worked with, one woman and one gay guy. Shocking. And they had an issue with the transition, and they refused to like call me by the pronouns I chose, even though I was living my life as a woman at that time. And they found a way to push me out of there. That's a long story. Anyway, so and then the economy crashed, and no one would hire me. I was a trans person. Before I transitioned as a gay white male, I could get jobs anywhere. Like, these jobs would just like hop up out of nowhere. People wouldn't even look at my portfolio. They would just hire me. But as a trans woman, no one offered me jobs. No one would allow me the time of day. And particularly gay men wouldn't give me the time of day. So that says a lot there too. Gay men and women, they were the biggest issues I had outside of dating as far as my transition goes. Anyway, so this guy I was dating, or I wouldn't call it dating, well, this guy I was sleeping with extensively for a long period of time. I was pretty desperate too. I was working two jobs, and I was also doing things on the side that a lot of trans women do. Today we'll just call it OnlyFans, but it wasn't OnlyFans. It was more in person. We'll just say that. So that's something that I had to do to survive and make money to pay the rent in Los Angeles. And I would say that kind of work was the most traumatizing thing I've gone through in my life. But this guy that I was with, I was hoping that he would pull me out of that. And he was at my house every single night in my apartment, eating all my food. And I asked him to help me with rent so I didn't have to do that to survive. And he would never help. He would never do anything like that. And he was at my house every single night. Well, when I started noticing that there were other issues, it was when it comes into traumatizing about me being trans. We went to Target. This was the first time I noticed it, and he would walk 3 feet in front of me. He would never like stand next to me, and he would almost like ignore me, like I wasn't there. And I was like, this is so weird. Once I realized what he was doing, that he didn't want anyone to see him with the trans girl, I was like, it was awful. And these are not gay men. I dated gay men before I transitioned. These are heterosexual men that are terrified of anyone knowing that they like trans women. So the next issue was when we went to a gas station, and two of his friends were there. They saw him and they tried to say hello, and he was like, oh, I'm just going to grab some stuff. I'm kind of in a rush. And he like ran off and left me standing there. And so I introduced myself to these people, and they were very sweet, and everything was fine. But he was like pale white and freaked out, and so I embarrassed the shit out of him in the parking lot of that gas station. I mean, I called him every name under the sun, and I made fun of him, and I made him cry, and then I left him there. And he had to walk home. I didn't give a shit. I turned my phone off. I did not give a shit. And the thing is, once I had realized that I was an embarrassment to him, that's pretty traumatizing. And that was the first one. We were together every single night. He spent the night for about 6, 7 months, you know. So yeah, that was traumatizing. The next one is when I actually moved back to where I live now. And there was an ex of mine that I was with, and a friend of his had this thing for me. And after my ex and I broke up, this guy contacted me on social media, and I was just getting pissy. And I straight up told him, I was like, "You do know that I'm trans, right?" And this guy had like a existential crisis because he had no idea, and he had such a thing for me, and he had built it up in his head, and he was so scared to talk to me. And then when he found that out, he freaked out, but he was still willing to give me a chance and date me. Well, after 6 months of sleeping with him, and he did the same thing as the other guy in Los Angeles, just kind of like hanging out at the house. I was young. I would never really expose myself completely, if you guys get what I'm saying, like in that way. And so whenever I'd sleep with him, I would never really expose myself. This stuff is going to get very, well, it's going to be very intense for some people to hear. And so after 6 months, he goes out of town, sends me all these love letters saying I've bewitched him. I never really liked him. I was never really attracted to him, but he was someone I was hanging out with. And it just became like a habit, I'm guessing, with him. And so when he came back in town after all these love letters and all this stuff about how crazy he is about me, I thought, well, okay, I'm going to expose myself. I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to be comfortable. We'll say that in general, he used to take forever in the bedroom. I'm laughing. But we're talking, I could have watched like The Lord of the Rings, all three. Like, holy shit. It would just take forever, and it was so boring. And so after I exposed myself, we'll just say that everything ended in about 10 seconds. And it wasn't because he was mad. And I was in shock. I was like, oh my God, like, he's totally into it. He just, it's like he's been in his head fighting with himself over this for so long. And it was kind of sad. And so anyway, I was like, okay, maybe we'll discuss that another time. So the next day, I randomly get this message midday at work, and I'm at work. And he tells me, we can't be together. We can't do this. And it's because he was freaked out. He was looking inward, and he realized what he liked, and he couldn't handle it. So he was pushing to break up, and I couldn't get him to tell me why. I was like, weren't you like in love with me a second ago? Like writing me all these messages and poems and shit. And so he had to hurt me. He had to hurt me in a way that would make me go away and never talk to him ever again, because he couldn't face the fact that he liked me. And he said the worst thing anybody's ever said to me in my whole life. Yeah, the worst thing anyone's ever said to me. And I tried to think, I was like, nope, it's the worst thing. And this is going to be traumatizing for trans people, so heads up. He wrote me this message and said, I'm tired of fucking a man and pretending it's a woman. And as a trans person, and I was at work, and I was kind of laughing because I was done with the relationship right before that. And then when he said those words, it transcended the fact that I was talking to him or that we were dating or whatever. It transcended everything. And it became like so traumatizing. I mean, I felt it like a blade, like someone had stabbed me, because it got into my psyche and it really messed me up for a while. I mean, I was so traumatized. I just blocked him immediately and didn't talk to him. He still lives here. Never seen him, shockingly. But that was the worst thing anyone said to me. Not long after that one, there was this guy that I used to just sleep with in Los Angeles. Wow, I was fun when I was young. I'm boring now. But there was a guy I used to just sleep with in Los Angeles, and it was a very good time, we shall say. And he contacted me randomly, and I was like, oh. And I was where I am now. So I had moved back to where I am now, and he had moved from Los Angeles to Chicago. And he was like, hey, how about I come down and visit you for a few days? And I was like, that sounds great. I was like, oh shit. Like I was kind of like, well, that sounds wonderful. So I was like, we can go places and do things, drinks and so on and so forth. And a couple of places I want to show him. So he drives down. I get off work. It's on a Saturday. I got off at 3, and he drives down. He arrived at like 6. And we'll say in his big monster truck. Anyway, so he showed up at my apartment. We hung out for about an hour, and I think smoked weed and stuff. And we hung out about an hour, and we'll just say that we ended up straight to it. It was we had a good time. It was good sex. So that happened, and so he said, I'm gonna go out to my truck, and this is horrible, by the way. He's like, I'm gonna go to my truck and I'm gonna go get my stuff, and then I'll be right back. I was like, okay. So I was, cleaning myself up and like washing my face and getting ready to go out to dinner and all this stuff. And with him, and I was like, wow, it's been a minute. I was like, where is he? So I went outside, and this was in an apartment complex. So his truck was gone. And I was like, well, that's weird. I was like, maybe he went to the gas station. I still wasn't getting it in my head what had happened. He left. He came, he drove 10 hours from Chicago, 30 minutes later, and left. And that's what he came for. And because he couldn't bear the idea of the fact that he likes trans women, he just could not handle that fact. And so he ran away. Oh my God. I mean, those three things, all traumatizing. Those are the worst things that have ever happened to me as a trans woman. That last one was incredibly traumatizing. Some other things have happened where guys have planned to come visit me and like they're supposedly coming in town and then they just disappear. Like I never hear anything and nothing's ever said because they cannot build the courage enough to go after it. It's awful. That last one, he contacted me, begging me like 6, 7 months later and apologizing and all this stuff, and I refused to answer him. Like I just would not talk back to him. I just left him alone with his own problem. He's married with a woman now, probably cheating on her with trans women. Would not be surprised because that's the path that people go down. And so, and we have the sex work is work. I agree, but I was in that work, and there's a lot of trans women that are in that work for survival. The problem, or not even survival, but now it's like OnlyFans and everything. It's just like normal now. The problem with that is that people only view you as sex, and when they view you as sex, they're not going to take you around your friends and family. Like you are a sex object. So, and that's it. That's all you are. So dating as a trans woman is incredibly traumatizing. And me telling this stuff to you guys is the worst. That's the worst stuff that's ever happened to me in my life. As far as my transition goes and people saying stuff to me, I would almost rather have the shit beat out of me. I would. Like, in a way, I'd rather be beat up and so then I can vilify them and so on and so forth. But what they did to me was traumatize me as far as love goes and dating and people and yeah, there's a reason why I like being alone. There's a reason why I like living alone. It's because people have done that stuff. So when it comes to trans people and trans lives, we all like to boast about passing and looking good in my new hair and, how I look in this dress and boasting about ourselves. But behind all of that is a lot of trauma. And for me, it doesn't matter how much you pass. Men are bastard pieces of shit. Actually, no, the human won't go straight for men because it's true. It's the human race are bastard pieces of shit. And they are and as trans people, we do a lot of self-reflection. A lot of people don't do that. Most people don't do self-reflection. As trans people, we do. So we're in tune with ourselves. Most people have no idea who they are. So for us to find out who we are, you've already surpassed them. Anyway, so, and I will say, like, my most recent ex, he was wonderful as far as this concerned. He had some really bad issues in his life, and I feel terribly bad for him, and we just couldn't mesh anymore. We just couldn't mesh because he had so many issues, and I was like a caretaker for him, and it just wasn't fun. And so it's not like he was very open-minded with the trans thing, and he was very kind. So there are good people out there, and like my ex-girlfriend was trans, but she was still in the beginning stages where she's finding herself, where everything's about her transition. She's very excited about it. Everything's about this, and this. And so it's fun to see someone going through that, but it's not fun dating someone, especially once you've already gone through it yourself. And it's like, oh God, everything's about being trans. So, yeah, there are good people out there, but it's pretty shitty. It's a shitty world for us. It's rough. So, anyway, sorry if this one's like a downer video, but that's my honest truth. Those are the three things that happened to me that were awful. There's been many other things. So don't think that this was like, these are the main things. There's been levels. These are just three that have traumatized me the most in my head. Anyway, I'm going to make another video next time about how I battle my dysphoria and what I use to do it. Y'all have a good one.